Welcome to Larry and Kathy's home. We like to garden for wildlife. We have lots of natives and encourage wildlife to come in, particularly pollinators and lots of birds. We get some fox, turtles, chipmunks, and unfortunately some deer also. This is the front of the house, somewhat sunny. Here's a sunny area here. This is a sunny shrub garden, has various shrubs in there. You can see I've had to protect the daylily with a little fence there. And then you walk up to the front, and again I've got a deer fence that protects the front. The deer will actually come up and nibble on the pansies and nibble on some of the other plants. So this is enough to keep them out. There's a variety of perennials in here. Here's some bluebells. This is a very unusual, it's a mayapple, an Asian mayapple that has really nice red flowers. Some ferns over there. Okay, we'll walk around to one side of the house. These are golden ragwort. They're flowering. Today is April 19th, so this is late spring. And here you can see I've got the downspout connected to this big long pipe, little flexible pipe, and it comes down and then comes down here and then waters this area. These are it's blackberry, big thing of blackberries. And again, I've got this little fence here so the deer don't come in and eat them in the winter. Or maybe you can hear that woodpecker. And these plants, this is a very sunny area. These plants really haven't started to grow yet. This is a cup plant in here that's just started. And this is an American wisteria here that's not really flowering yet. But if you want wisteria, you definitely want the American and not the Asian varieties. Here's what the front yard looks like late in the season. The huge plant is a hardy banana, Musa basjoo. That's a perennial that stays in the ground, and it grows this huge stem in 1 year. It's mostly hardy in this area. You're supposed to possibly mulch it in the winter, although the last few winters have been so mild it doesn't seem to matter. But it's a really nice plant, no fruit, it's just a foliage plant. Here's a regular spring flowering Japanese camellia in full bloom, and it did really well because the previous winter wasn't terribly windy. That can burn the buds off. And when we got this plant, we inherited it when we moved in, and it was barely 18 inches tall, and it's just grown huge over the years. This is the side garden later on in the summer. The tallest plant there is cup plant. That's a native. It does really well with pollinators. You always get lots of butterflies and bees on it. Now we'll walk around back and we'll come to the wooded area. And you can see there's a slope, big slope here up to the neighboring houses and over here. And what happens is the water will rush down here when it's raining really hard and come down here, and also it comes in through the side here, and then it was coming along here in a stream, and then it goes out down there toward the compost bin, down along that row of hosta, and then around the corner, and we'll walk around the corner later. So what we've done over the years is put a lot of terracing in here with these granite blocks down here. I had to put some cross pieces in. We've put in a lot of ferns and water-loving plants in here. It's kind of like a rain garden, but not quite. We've got too much water to really stop it. We're trying to slow it down. And then over here by the deck, you can see I've got a couple rain barrels hooked up. You can see them behind the rhododendrons. And we also got a lot of deer in here. So between spraying, and then I've put up some fences. You can see there's these 4-foot fences here that are fenced in some of the sensitive plants so we don't have to spray as much. And since it makes it a small enclosed area, the deer don't jump in there. So now I'll walk up here through the path and show you some of the plants. This is a climbing hydrangea that's climbing up this large tree here. Lots of ferns in here. We've put in a bunch of native plants as much as we can. We've also got hellebores, which aren't native. These are all wood poppy now. They're flowering now. These are natives. They do spread, but you can pluck out the little seedlings if you don't want them. Here's a bleeding heart. Lots of ostrich ferns back up in here, and some other ferns also. Here's quite a large patch of ginger that spreads pretty well. I believe this is actually a non-native ginger. It's very similar to the native though. And here's a patch of the native ginger. Very similar. It's a slower grower. And this is where we put a lot of the hellebores. This is very dry, really root bound, but if you can get the hellebores in between the roots, they do fine. And we've taken a lot of time. It's been about 25 years we've been working on this. And I'll show you a picture of the before later on in the video. Down here, it's a very wet area. Here's some red twig dogwoods. These are some winterberry hollies, things that do well in the wet. And here's the row of hosta I was talking about, where the water comes through, so we put hosta in there to soak up the water. And you can see that I've actually had to put a cage over the top instead of spraying these, because the spray gets pretty expensive. I built a metal cage that keeps the deer from eating them, because they'll eat them down to the ground if you don't spray them. Up by the deck here is some Delaware Valley white azaleas. They're flowering right now. Here's the native red honeysuckle. Maybe you can see some of the blooms on there. And that I've got to trim back every year because it spreads, it'll grow up this trellis quite a bit. Then down here, this is the newest area that I've started to put in a lot of pollinator plants. It's a little early in the season. This is a blue star though. It should be flowering fairly soon. And back here is the vegetable garden, nothing in it yet. And you can see that, you know, I've put the 4-foot fence around the vegetable garden so the deer don't come in. And back here is a native, taller, late season perennial garden. Here's some goldenrod here. There's some cutleaf coneflower. The cut plant here is starting to grow. And then we're back around the back. This is the blackberry plants and some natives in here of pollinator plants to get the bees to come around the blackberries. And that's about it. Now I'll have some pictures from later on in the season in various places. This is what part of the wooded area looks like a little under a year after we moved in the previous summer. This is mid-spring. You can see we've cleared out all the underbrush and started our first row of New York granite blocks. And then we started planting things that fall. Here's the left half of the wooded area. This is the driest part, so you can see there's lots of hellebores in there, and then a large Big Daddy hostas in front. Here's the back half of the wooded area when it's fully leafed out. Lots of ferns in there, mostly ostrich fern that spreads nicely. There's epimedium in there, they'll take it dry and shady. And also various other woodland plants. Here's a close-up of the buttonbush with a bunch of tiger swallowtails on it. Buttonbush, that's a native shrub. It can get kind of tall, 6 to 8 feet, maybe even taller, and there is a smaller variety that you can get. The flowers are these spiky looking balls, and there's a ton of nectar on those, and when it's in flower, June, July, you just get loads of bees and butterflies all over it. This is the side perennial garden that was along the fence. Late in the season, a lot of these plants are blooming or have bloomed, In the back there's some Joe Pye weed. Then there's a willow leaf helianthus, cutleaf coneflower. And in the front there's an aster that's not started blooming yet, and a baptisia that bloomed earlier in the spring. Here's the deck later in the summer when all the pots have filled out. There's a mixture in here of some perennials, some tropicals that have to come in the winter. There's that tall leafy plant that's actually, it's called Duranta. It has beautiful flowers, but in the winter I cut it back pretty far and then it goes into the basement. A lot of the others, some of the bulbs have to come out and overwinter. And then you have things like the little butterfly bush there in the center, and that stays in that pot. And that's a sterile butterfly bush. If you plant these, you want to get the sterile variety instead of the regular ones that seed themselves. Here's another part of the deck. It's a little bit shadier. So in here, there's a lot of elephant ears. On the right, these are upright elephant ears. There's a regular elephant ear toward the left. In the center is a black taro. And all these have to be dug up and stored in the basement in the winter.